do factor to solve in this section. We just did a whole unit on factoring, so hopefully then this is super easy. If you didn't understand factoring, now if you didn't get help before, you have to get help now. So make sure you contact your teacher to get help with factoring because it's not going away. We are going to be factoring a lot this whole year. Okay, so before we factor, we need to talk about the zero product property. And I'm sure all of you know the zero product property, you just didn't know the name of it. So if two things multiplied together to equal 0, then A has to be 0 or B has to be 0. So if you have 0 times anything, it's always going to be 0. And if two things multiplied together, one of them has to be 0 because two numbers don't multiply to get to 0. Okay, so that is your zero product property. So when you have two things, now most of you were probably thinking of like 3 and 0 or 0 and -5 or whatever. It could also be two factors. So either x plus 2 has to be 0 or x equals 9 has to be 0. Okay, so how we are going to solve this is x plus 2 equals 0 and x minus 9 equals 0. So you're going to put them both equal to 0, and then we quickly solve. So you still get two answers. Remember from the first video, whenever you solve for x, you are always going to get two answers when we're in this chapter because we're doing quadratics. So x equals -2 and x equals 9. When you get something that looks like this, 2x could be in parentheses, but it doesn't have to be. So 2x equals 0 and x minus 5 equals 0. So x is 0 and x is 5. Same difference when you have this, you just have a couple steps to solve instead of one. So you have to subtract 3, and you can do this in your head if you want, or show as much work as you can, especially on the test, so your teacher knows your thought process, because otherwise we don't know where you get your answers. And if you make a silly mistake, we can't help you and give you as much credit as possible. Now, I'm doing fractions. If you wanted to do -1.5, that's fine. This one is 1.3333, so this one's a little bit ickier. So I would just do fractions, especially if they're like this. It's just a lot easier and quicker. All right? So our goal is to get your factors so then we can solve really easily. Okay? So we can solve an equation with zero product property if we can make it equal to 0 first, and then make it a multiplication problem. So that means we need to factor. So here's your little box of directions if you forget. So remember, when you are given f of -1, this -1 is your x value. So that means -1 squared minus 5 times -1. Wherever you see an x, you have to put in the -1. If it's once, twice, 5 times, you put it in wherever you see an x. So -1 squared is 1. So then minus 5 times -1. So that's minus a -5, which turns into a plus. So your answer should be 6. Okay, so now find x when f of x is 0. So then I put in a 0 and x squared minus 5x. Okay, so get it equal to 0 is step 1. Well, it's already equal to 0, so we're good. So our next job is to factor. So remember, when we factor completely, we needed to take out a GCF. So your GCF in this case is going to be an x. And the reason why we do that is because, look, now we are done. We don't have to do the box and diamond. We don't have to do anything else, because after you take out the GCF, now you have your two factors. And you set them both equal to 0. So x equals 0 and x minus 5 equals 0. So I add 5, and your other answer is x equals 5. So sometimes your factoring is super easy like that. All you have to do is take out a GCF. Other times, it's not going to be, and that's okay, because you guys are experts at factoring, right? Okay, so here's my problem. First job is to get it equal to 0. So I got to get rid of the 6. So I'm going to subtract 6 on either side. So, and I don't have a lot of room, so I'm going to have to go over here. So, my diamond, remember, first times the last is negative 6x squared minus 5x. So what multiplies to negative 6 and adds to negative 5 would be negative 6x and x, I believe. Yep. So then my box, I get x squared, and I get minus 6, negative 6x and x. So I take out an x, take out a negative 6, an x, and a 1. So that means my factor would be x minus 6, x plus 1. And let's just double check using FOIL, and it works. If you need to do it off to the side, go for it. So now x minus 6 equals 0 and x plus 1 equals 0. Okay. Plus 6. So my first answer is x equals 6. And then my next answer is x equals negative 1. So if you know how to do the box and diamond, it's really easy. If you don't, then you need to go back and watch last chapter's videos, because otherwise it's going to be really hard for this chapter. Okay. Okay. Find y when x is 5. So I'm going to plug in a 5 in for my x wherever I see it. I don't have a lot of room. So that's 3 times 5 squared is 25. Remember, exponents, then multiply. So don't do 15 squared. It's 5 squared is 25 times 3 is 75. 5 times 11 is 55. And then I minus 12. So 130 minus 12 is 118. All right. So now that one's the easy one, was when you're given the x. When you're given x, all you got to do is plug it in. Now when you are solving for x, that's when you have to use these directions. Okay? So 8 equals 3x squared plus 11x minus 12. I need to get it equal to 0. All right, so now I get negative 60x squared and then 11x. So now I got to do some thinking. 60 divided by 5 is 12. 6 and 10. 4 and 15. There we go. So 4 and 15. So you can just keep doing it on your calculator until you get the right number. So 15x and negative 4x. They add up to 11 and they multiply to 60. So now, come on. Oh, whoops. My box. So I put the first and last term in, and then I put my 15 and negative 4x. So that's 3x. Negative 4. Here's my x. And there is 5. So 0 equals 3x minus 4 and x plus 5. So let's just do a little quick mental math to see if it works. It does. So now 3x minus 4 equals 0 and x plus 5 equals 0. I don't have enough room to show all my work. I add 4 to get 4 divided by 3, so 4 divided by 3. So I get 4/3 and negative 5. Okay. All right, we have one more example. I want to see if you guys can, I'm going to do purple maybe this time. And try to zoom in more so I might have to use the space above to do some box and diamond stuff. So here's our problem. I want you to pause it. You do the example to see if it works. See if you can get all the way down to what x equals. Remember, you get 2 x values. I'm going to do it here. Try not to just copy and mindlessly watch me. That's not going to be helpful for you. All right, once you get your two factors, just do a little bit of mental math to see if it works. So I get 3x plus 5 equals 0 and x plus 2 equals 0. So I subtract 5, then I divide by 3. So I get negative 5 divided by 3. And then I subtract 2. To get negative 2. So those are my two answers. So there is a lot of writing on these ones, but hopefully the box and diamond is really quick and easy for you by this time. Using your calculator, finding those factors, these two, hopefully that is becoming easier for you since you've done it a ton lately. We just got done doing it. Then once you have your two factors, then it's just a quick, easy equation, one-step or two-step equation to solve. Okay? So if you have problems factoring, talk to your teacher or